Hello everyone, welcome to my class. My name is Yu Lin, the artist behind In Creative Studio on Instagram. I had degrees in oil painting and art education. However, currently I use watercolor as my main medium for both my art and design. I'm so excited to be part of the Bundle Lab project because there are so many amazing artists and creators here. I hope you enjoy all classes that we offer, including mine. In the following video, you will learn about what kind of art supplies that I use, what inspiration that I get, and how to paint water drops on leaves with bokeh effect background. If you are all ready, let's jump right in. In this class, you will be learning how to paint water droplets on leaf. This is my older painting. The first time I did the water droplets, I really enjoy creating this effect. And you will learn all the details like how I create those reflection, those contrasts. Once you have all this technique, you can apply the water droplets even in different color paintings. And also on different kind of flower or leaves. Here's another, my painting. You can even apply the water droplets under the branches. So it makes the painting more interesting. And that's what I'm going to show you is you don't see the water droplets in the main part, but once you add those small details here, it really makes the painting more interesting and more details to look into it. So for this class, I'm going to use a few photos from Pinterest as reference. First reference. Usually when I use any photos from Pinterest or different website, I always credit either the photographer or whoever upload the pictures because I really appreciate their work. That's why I have so many different options that I can paint with. Otherwise, I don't think I would be able to take all the pictures by myself. So the first one is from Pinterest, photo by Man Sandy. Original photo is on Flickr.com, but I found it on Pinterest. So the reason I like the first one is, look at this layout, it's very interesting. It's kind of crop the picture in different proportion. And I like the main leaf in the center, which is what we are going to adopt for this class. And for the next picture, the reference 2, the reason I like this one is because of the lighting in the background. Oh, by the way, this photo is uploaded by, I'm so bad at pronouncing people's names, so I apologize here. So it's by Labe Elzo. Sorry about that. So the reason I like this photo is because of the lighting. So I'm gonna adopt this lighting for our background. The next one, the third one, is from, I found it on Pinterest, but I go back to their original website, Flickr.com, and I found the author's name, which is Vadaka, 1986. The reason I like this one is it's so you can clearly to see the water droplet. You can see all the reflection from the sky or from the surroundings. So you might see different kind of picture image of different kind of water drops. I think just because of the surroundings, including the time of the day, the weather, the sky, or seasons, that's all possible to affect the colors or the shapes of the raindrop. So you can use your own reference, but in this class, I'm going to use those references. Here are all our supplies that we will use in this class. Let's talk about paint first. I use the brand called Art Philosophy. It comes with so many different kind of sets and colors for you to choose. And in this class, I mainly will use terrain and woolens. However, I'm not going to use all the colors inside. I usually pick the colors that I need from different sets and create my own color palette. I will let you know which colors I choose. I will write down the number and name for each color. If you want to use the same brand, you can use my discount code to get it. If not, no worry. Just use whatever you have at home and just try to find the colors, maybe just similar colors to match, and then you can start this class. Next, let's talk about paper. I choose the brand called Arches. A lot of people know and use this brand already, so it's really good watercolor paper. I choose cold press 300 GSM, which is 140 pounds and 100% cotton. This paper is so good for certain watercolor technique, especially wet on wet, lifting colors. And later on, I'm going to show you the washes, which I will use those techniques to create bokeh effect background. I will show you later. Then let's talk about brushes. I have 3 sets. The first one is from Princeton Neptune series. I have a quill size 6, oval wash size half, and the round brushes size 8 and 6. This set is mainly for the background, but I will use the quill one quite often. You will see me how to use it in this class. Other 2 sets, which is the first one is silver black velvet. I have a size 8 and size 4. Another set is from Actual Lab. I have a size 8, size 6, and size 3. These 2 sets mainly for the leaf and the water drops. You will see me how to do those details. And the last one, which is kind of flat, very small one, I mainly use it to lifting colors in certain area. I will show you how I use this brush. Then we talk about masking fluid. I use masking fluid quite often, especially when I try to focus on the front object. And the brand I'm using is Wizard and Newton. For we talk about masking fluid, I would like to show you some tips. One tip is using liquid soap. If you have any liquid soap at home, kind of hand soap or maybe detergent, you can all use it. I will show you how to use the soap. And for masking fluid, I usually like to use the small palette, and it comes so handy. I will show you how to use it when we go to that part. And then this tool is called residue eraser. I use this one to remove masking fluid when it's dry. And next to it, just regular eraser and pencil for the sketch. Now we talk about the palette. I like to use ceramic palette. It's so sturdy, easy to clean. So after wash, it looks like a brand new. So I like a ceramic one. Okay, for the watercolor, of course, we need a jar of water. You can have any kind of bucket at home, or I just choose the glass one. The last item, you can use any kind of old towel or rag at home. Some people might like to use paper towel, so it's all up to you. I just need this towel to absorb extra water from your brush, so it comes pretty handy. So we really need something to absorb the water. Okay, so here are all our materials that we will use for this class. Before we start painting, let's talk about the colors that we are going to use. First, number 121 named Fern. Second, number 123 named Vine Leaf. Third, number 125 named Blossom. These three colors are from the set of Terran. And I put them all on the top, this section. And the fourth is number 96 named D Moss. Fifth, number 92 named Mist. Sixth, number 88 named Foxberry. Seventh, number 91 named Bear. And the last one, number 86 named Shadow. They are all down here. And those colors are from the set of Woodlands. So when I paint, you will see how I use those colors, and no worry, those references will be on side, so you can always refer to which color I'm using. Now we're done introducing all the colors. Let's go to the sketch part. After we have all our colors ready, let's do our sketch. As you can see the reference on the left screen, we can start from drawing the main leaf in the middle. So I kind of preview my sketch already, so you might be able to see. I kind of start with the middle and put my main leaf in the middle like here. And then based on the reference, you can see the stem going through the main leaf. So it's right behind, so we can make sure we have all the stem right here. And then based on the reference, there are a few leaves behind the main leaf. So I'm gonna add one here too. I'm not going to 100% copy the reference, so I'm gonna just add one here. All the way up here, I will add another one. And then down here, I might just add another one down here as like a background. So let me move closer. You might be able to see my sketch. So usually I use 2H pencil to do my sketch. I don't like to make my pencil marks too dark, since after you apply watercolor, I don't want the pencil mark on it. So usually I use 2H, which is lighter, and I can have the outline more clear and precise. So let me move closer, you can see. So you can take your time, do your sketch. If you haven't done, you can pause on here and finish your sketch. Once you finish sketch, I will add some water droplets. 1, 2, 3, tiny one here. And if you would like, we can add another one down here, like this one is dripping. So it's all up to you. I will have a main one here, the bigger one here, and second one here, third one here, tiny one here, and the one is dripping down here. So another tip is, later on I'm gonna show you how to use the masking fluid. Once you apply masking fluid on the main part, like a main focus subject, when you dry, you try to remove it, it will leave some pencil marks. So just keep in mind, if you do it too dark right now, it's okay. Just remember, after we remove masking fluid, it will leave some pencil marks. So it might make your sketch lighter. So not to worry too much. But if you do really light like mine, just keep in mind, you might not be able to see the water drop sketch. So if you worry about it, you can make your water drop outline a little bit darker. Remind yourself where it will be. Right here, and then where it's edge, you can make a edge a little bit darker. Then that's our sketch. If you are ready, let's move to the masking fluid. I will show you which part we are going to apply masking fluid on it. Before we apply masking fluid to our main subject, I'm going to show you what supplies that we need. First, a jar of water, then the liquid soap we mentioned earlier, masking fluid, small palette, and 2 old brushes. I use a very old one that I don't usually use it to paint. Also, the ideal one will be the synthetic one, because the reason I don't use the good brushes, I learned from my own mistake. I use masking fluid without liquid soap, or I did not clean right away. That really make my brushes clog. So that'll be the big mistake. So in order not to make those mistakes, try to avoid them, I would suggest if you just start using it, you start using masking fluid, you can just get some kind of cheaper brushes. So if you really mess up, you don't feel too bad about it. So okay, let's get started. Since I'm going to demonstrate right about my painting, so I'm gonna have one paper just in case any accident, like anything dripping on the paper. So first of all, we have the liquid soap. We don't need a lot. You just kind of have maybe 1 punch, like 1 drop like this. Then next, for the masking fluid. So another thing about masking fluid, when you open it, you kind of see it's pretty clean. There's no glue stuck on it. So if that's the case, you can use it right away. But if you do see some kind of bubbly thing, or maybe kind of gooey or glue forming there, I would suggest just clean it first, and then you can use kind of just back off your brushes, like a wood stick or any kind of wood stick you can find at home. You can just stir it gently. Don't shake it, don't make any bubble, just gently to stir to make it even. But for me, since it's pretty good, so I'm not going to do that. And then I'm gonna just dump enough for this small painting. And once you get enough out, I usually will clean the edge here. You see some extra masking fluid. I will clean up right away. If you don't, later on you close it, and then when you reopen it, you might have a hard time to open it. So I usually like to just clean right away. Make sure no extra glue around it. Now it's all good. You can put it on side. Now we have 2 brushes, and we move this one out. I have some water here, and we have some old towel here just in case. Now we can open here. We can open, you can see the main sketch here. I like to move my masking fluid, the palette right next to it. So I have 2 brushes, one smaller, one bigger. I will start with the small one. I like to just outline certain areas, especially smaller area. So you don't need too much water as long as your brush have enough water on it. And then next one, you have to really dig the whole brush into the soap thoroughly. Just make sure each part has soap. So let me move closer, you will see. Just make sure the whole brush have the soap inside out. Then that will be ready. And then I'm gonna start with the stain. So from screen, you might not see exactly my sketch. Some people like to use the tinted masking fluid, but personally I like the original one, no color. But when it dries, you will see where I apply the masking fluid on. So smaller brush, you can outline the area you're going to prevent from painting the background. So this time, the smaller brush can really have a very precise edge you want. And just make sure fill in inside properly. Sometimes when you paint the brush, paint the background, you might forget certain area you don't have a masking fluid covered. You might just paint it, and the color might go through to your main subject, which is not the color you want. So you can take your time. Make sure you cover the whole area. So sometimes I start with the small brush and I think I can just use one to finish the whole subject. So it's up to you. You can use one brush. Like I plan to use two, but now I feel like the small one can really help me cover the whole main subject. So I might just stay with one brush. And here too, the second leaf on the back. Just make sure you cover each area. So take your time. If you are the first time to use a masking fluid, no rush. You can always pause and get yourself ready. Give yourself some time to finish. Okay, now I move to the bigger leaf. Almost done here, the main one. So when masking fluid dries, I think from the screen you should be able to see the difference between the color and the masking fluid. So you will see, it will be more obvious. You can see where is my main subject. From the sketch, maybe it's a little bit harder. But now I think after I apply masking fluid, you can see better where is my sketch. There we go, almost done. So if you run out of masking fluid, no worry, you can add more on your palette. I think mine is just right amount for me to cover my main project here. There we go, we're done. And once you're done, you can go back, always go back to check which section maybe not enough, or maybe some area like you forgot to do it. Like here, I forgot to add this small tiny part. So I'm gonna just add it here, make sure they all cover well. Now you can take a look if we cover the whole area. Let me move the palette and then move closer. I think you should be able to see my masking fluid area. It all covered pretty good. And now once you finish it, remember right away you have to wash this brush. Let me show you. If you wash it right away, just wash it thoroughly. And I have an old towel here, and then we get rid of all the waters. Then you will see this brush is still a little bit clogged, but just in time we still can get rid of it. It just kind of, you pick it out, and this brush is good as new. It's not anything clogged, so it's ready for the next time to use. So just remember to wash the brush right away, so they are all good for the next time. While waiting masking fluid to dry, let's do a small project, small practice of how to paint water droplets in a realistic style. So since we have some space here, so we can just draw different kind of circle, or you wanna do the oval, which is okay. So this one just kind of practice, so it's, you know, it don't have to be perfect. So I'm gonna just draw the oval here, and while we're waiting, I'm gonna just make sure it's not too sticky, and I'm gonna put another piece of paper, you know, just in case no any accident. So we're gonna practice how to draw the water droplets like this. So I have two different styles. This one's more realistic, that match our reference more. So I'm going to show you how to do this kind of water droplets. So let's do that. So first of all, I will use the coil 6. Just get some water. And when you wet the area, just make sure the lightest part, try not to apply water on it. Only the part you are going to add the color on it. So based on the reference of different picture, I only wet certain area, like the top part, the darker part, not the lighter part. So we have all the water only on the darker part. Now the paper is wet, then I use the size 8. We're gonna get the lightest green right here. So when the paper is still wet, that's the best time to apply the first layer of green. So we're gonna just see where those colors will be. So that'll be the lightest color, and you will see the area has no water. We can use this brush, just gently bring some water in, but you don't want too much water down here since that's the lighter part. You don't want any color down there. So you can bring some color down here, but not too much. So mainly we keep the bottom as the lightest part. Okay, so when the paper is still wet, let's add the second green, like a darker one. Then we can add in darker here, some here, some on the top, and here is the darkest part. So we added a dark green right here, and all the way down here. So we can say naturally the color kind of just breathing in each other. And down here I feel like we can add a little bit light green. So at that moment you can have some water here and just use this brush, get a little bit light green, just a little bit, and you can just kind of brush in, so you can make a more dimension down here. So the lightest part still down here and the lighter part here. Okay, now the paper is still wet. Let's add a darker green. So we can still use the same color. We just add a darker one. So I use the same space. You can see how the color gradually get darker. Now we go here. Here's darker. We go in. So we just add a more darker color on this side. So of course, when you do the small painting right next to it, the area is not going to be this big. I make it big so you guys can see how I do it. And you can see some edge. You can use Coil 6 while we have a little bit light green. Add some middle green and just gently brush the edge so they will all blending in. Right here, like that. And some color maybe you can bring down here a little bit. Okay, that's all the layer there. And then we can add the darkest one. Now let me move in more so you can see better. Okay, let's do this. Now I use the smaller brush. We get the color 92. Right next to it, you will see it's darker. From the screen, let me move this one up here so you can see which color I'm using. So I'm gonna use 92. And then we add a little bit 86 shadow. It's so much darker. Now for the darkest color, I only add on the edge, like a certain area. See, the paper is still wet, so that's the best time to add all different colors so they can all blending in. And here is the darkest part, so we're gonna add more right here. And if you have a previous brush, have some kind of dark green here, just add to the edge. Add more here. Now we go back to this quill, have some light green in, you just gently blending in. Now I can wash, get rid of more colors from there. Some water, you can make them blending together. And you can bring some color from your brush down the bottom here. Now we can have the water drop this here. And from the reference, certain areas still lighter. So that's the time you can go in. Let's use the lifting technique. That's the time I'm gonna use the flat brush. Just a little bit water, not too much. You see a certain area gonna be lighter than you. Just lifting. Every time you lift, make sure you get rid of extra color on either paper towel or your rack. So we're gonna go in again. Here's the lighter. I'm gonna lifting more, and here's the lighter. I'm lifting some, and then here gonna be very light. So I'm gonna do more. So that's how you get all the refreshing from the surrounding inside a small tiny water drop. And that's it. That's the biggest one. So if you want to make it more 3D, we can add a shadow. We can just add some water around it. So still not touching the lightest part. Still avoid the lightest part. And then I just apply water around it. Okay. Now we're gonna just use the brush from previous one. You can just add a leaf color around it. Now the lightest part is really standing out. We just add a very simple shadow so you can really see where is the lightest part. And also the shadow will be here, the darkest part. We're gonna use more dark green. Add it here. So shadow can really help make your water droplets stand out. Okay, now we can add the darkest green. Add a little bit shadow. Now we just add on the edge, right over here. And there we go. So that's the water droplets that we practice. But right here, I feel like there's a little bit refreshing down the bottom. So I'm going to do a little bit light green refreshing down here. But remember, do not touch the shadow. You don't want to bring the darker green inside the water drop. So just a little bit light green. You can just add on the edge. Now you squeeze the extra color on the quill brush. Bring some green in here. And some refreshing here. Maybe a little bit darker. Down the bottom here. A little bit here. Put some color down here. So when we do the real painting, the water drop gonna be really small, tiny one. So you do not have to add more details like this. But this one, I'm going just paint it bigger to let you see. And also different kind of shape of the water droplets. So that's just a small practice for you before we move to our painting. After practicing how to paint water droplets, let's move to our main painting. Before we're doing that, let's double check if masking fluid is completely dry. So what you can do is just use your finger, tap the masking fluid area. They are not sticky, it's nothing on your finger. That means all dry, and we can start painting the background. So before we paint the background, I'm gonna mention a little bit about bokeh effect background. Some people might not know what's bokeh, so I'm going to just briefly talk about what is bokeh. Bokeh is the blurry out of focus parts of an image. So if you see some picture or photo, you will see the background is blurry. You can barely see the edge or maybe the shape of the object, but you might see some kind of circling shapes about the colors and make the background so blurry. That's the background we are going to create right here. If you would like to learn more about bokeh effect, you can go to my another class at Skillshare. I have a complete guide about how to create bokeh effect, including what, why, and how. So the whole complete guide is right over there. So from here, let's do our painting first. So as you can see, I have all the colors ready. So the bokeh effect is kind of time consuming, and it's all about how much water you control. So since it's time consuming, I usually have all the colors ready. So I use 4 brushes, each one has 1 color. So once I start painting, I will have all the colors ready, so easy for me to control the time and the water. So here I have the first like a lighter green, and the middle one I mix kind of second and third one to make a, sorry, right here, the second green, and for the third green I kind of add a number 125, but I add a little bit number 2 to make it kind of subtle, kind of between. And the darkest one I use 96. I also mix a little bit 125, so kind of make it kind of gradually getting darker. And for the background, I usually paint it section by section, so I don't wet the paper all together. So for example, I'm going to start this area, so I'm gonna just wet the paper for this area first. Once I finish, I will gradually move down to the darker part, which is right in this corner. So take your time, get all the colors ready. Once you're ready, let's start painting the background. Let's paint the background. First, I usually use coil size 6 to wet the paper. The reason I like this brush is because it can hold on pretty good amount of water And then once you apply water on the paper, you can keep it. It still has some water in it. We're gonna use it pretty soon, so you can put it on side. And after that, let me show you one thing. Some people might ask me how much water means enough. So from the reflection, you can see here's all wet, here's dry. But if you apply water and once you move the paper, the water is still floating or moving around, that means too much. And then make sure you cover all the texture of the paper. Then I think that's a good amount for us. And first, we're gonna use the lighter green. So since the lighting is from the right top corner, so we're gonna start from this area. We're going darker and darker, and here is also darker. Here might have some refreshing. I will show you how we do it. So first, hold down your light green, and when you apply the color in it, you can do the circular movement like this. You're not filling the whole paper, but you just apply color to a certain area you want the light green to be. Once you have that done, we have the coil brush backing. Still have some water, but not too much water. And then you just kind of soften the edge. Also do the circular movement like this. That way you can really make the edge really soft. And blending in like that. So you can do that over this area, including here. So sometimes if the brush got too much colors, you can either go to different area, or you can just wash off the extra color on the brush and then just bring some water in, because I'm going to make sure the edge here is smooth. There's no sharp edge. So once we have a first green, certain area you feel like, oh, I want here is a little bit darker, you can always go back in, add more light green. Until you feel happy about it. And bring the coil brush back in. Do the circular movement of your brush. Now the color kind of naturally blending in, and you make it a soft edge of the first layer, which is light green. Right over here. Okay, I think light green will look good. And here, usually I gonna make sure here's not the strong edge right here. Over here. In the top corner, I might add a little bit dark green, just smidge bit right here. So every time you add a darker color in certain area, remember to use the previous brush to tone it down. And this one have some kind of light green on it still. So it's a perfect timing. You go in, same thing. The edge just make them blending in softly. I think that edge, that part is all good. And sometimes you can bring the colors down here. You feel like here can be a little bit darker. So it's all up to you. And when you do the background, don't worry too much like totally copy the reference. As long as you know where is the lighting coming, you just go through moving down. Okay, I think the first part here is pretty good. We are done. And then we're gonna move to the top right corner right here. So same thing, coil size 6. Make sure you wash out the colors on it from the previous section. And then we just add more color down here. And a little bit down here. Since here is still wet, so it's the best time you can add more colors. So I'm going to do this area all together. Once you have enough water, so same thing, I'm gonna use the light green. I'm gonna gradually make this area darker, so I apply more green down here. Also here it's gonna be darker, so I'm gonna add more light green here as well. So for the pattern is really free. You don't have to really copy my pattern. It's really free. Just do the circular movement. When it's still wet, you can add the second green, and you know this area gonna be darker. You add some dark green here. Always doing the circular movement. That can make the whole edge very gentle, subtle. And you can see the color blending in, but they kind of moving. Sometimes the nature blending can make a really good effect. So I'm gonna just fill in this area. And then when here is still wet, that's the perfect timing. Use your coil 6. Sometimes you can add a little bit light green, just make sure the edge is not too strong. Anywhere you feel too strong edge, just go in, smooth out. Sometimes too much water or color, you can get rid of the extra color and water. Go in this area and here too. So now here you can kind of see the second green blending in pretty well, but here kind of too strong. So since it's still wet, that would be the best time you can fix it. What you can do, take a look coil size 6, make sure not too much water there, a little bit light green, and just gently kind of just swipe on the surface. You don't want to leave out colors, but you just want to make the edge softer. There we go. So here you can see still kind of wet. That'll be a good time we can add the third colors in. So here we're gonna add some dark part right here. Little bit area here. So same as here, gonna add some over here. So since it's still wet, the color can blend in, which is really good. And then here, same thing, the edge. Try to avoid the sharp edge. So I usually bring the previous colors brush, just blend them in. So looks pretty good here. And a certain area, if you don't feel it's smooth enough, same thing, use a coil 6. So like here, I might smooth out a little bit. Here, a little bit right here. And then now from the screen, you should be able to see kind of blurry. You're not really sure what kind of shape in the background, but I think that's the effect we try to create, kind of leafy, but it's blurry. So on the top, I'm gonna maybe layer, maybe certain area I'm gonna add a little bit darker area. maybe here, right here. So just remember, the best time to add is always when the paper is still wet. That's really the good timing to add the different colors. So if you feel like they don't breathing in smoothly, bring your previous brush, previous color. Kind of just bring the colors all together. This area we forgot to fill in, so still wet, so it's a good timing to add some color in between. And maybe add some dark here. Here's darker, so we're gonna bring a darker green here. So I think now the top part is all done. So we can move to the bottom part. So that would be exactly same step as the top. So we're gonna wet the paper first. So always remember to clean your quill size 6 brush, because it might have some colors from previous section. So just in case we don't bring them down here. So before you start, you will see some colors might not have enough. So that's a good time you can add more light green here. We might need a little bit down here. So I think that's good enough. So sometimes you might see me holding 2 or 3 brushes all at the same time, since it might be easier for me to do all the colors. So now let's repeat the same step. We're gonna wet the paper from here. That's how we can move in down here. Okay, gonna stop here first. And then, since here is from the second green, so I'm gonna start from here. Here might have some lighter green reflection. I will show you how I'm going to do it. So we have a second green, fill in certain area. Circular movement. And I would like here to be a little bit lighter. So that's, I use the light green here. Maybe a little bit here. So that's the time you kind of create your own pattern, where it can be darker, where it can be lighter. That's a good time to do it, since the paper is still wet. And since you can see here, the edge is kind of sharp. I don't want, when you dry, have a sharp edge. So use coil, have some water only. Just make the edge softer, and for the next section. And right here, use a lighter green. Go back in, soften the edge, make the 2 colors blending in smoothly. And sometimes maybe it's not enough, use the coil size 6. Let's squeeze the extra colors out. So the soft edge is a key point for the bokeh effect background. You don't want any kind of sharp edge there. Okay, from here, since there's some darker green right there, I'm going to add some dark green. Since it's connected here, I'm gonna just bring some dark green here. And here too. Here maybe a little bit. And use this green. Soften the edge, make a color blending together naturally. So you kind of just repeat the same steps. Wet the paper, add the first color, and then here still wet. Let's add the darker green, kind of bluish green here. It's connecting here. We'll make it here a little bit darker. Here too. Maybe a little bit here. Use the previous green. Soften the edge, bring more color in. Okay. And then sometimes we can use coil. Not too much water. You don't want to make a wash, so we can use the second green. So those steps you can do it when the paper is still wet. That would be the best time to make all the color breathing in together naturally. I think this session is also done. We're gonna move in down here. So I'm gonna continue here and all the way back here. So for this area, I might add some kind of leaf shape since I try to make like a middle ground from there. So let's try to maybe add some leafy shape here. So the same step, wash your quill size, make sure not a lot of colors on it. So we're gonna wet the paper of this area. And also a little bit here. We continue this area. Try not to put too much water on the paint you did already, because you don't wanna kind of leave out colors, or sometimes you might leave a watermark on it, which is not what we want. Okay, so this area is ready. So the same step, add the first color you want to be. And the second green, I might add more as well. I don't see we have enough here. And this third color, maybe a little bit as well. Okay, that's ready. Let's go in here. Depends on how much reflection you want to do. Maybe not too much. And then use a second green. Whenever you see kind of like a rough edge, quill 6 is here. Add the previous color. Soften the edge. And color blending together here. Since here is kind of dry, I'm gonna add more colors here. In the second green, and Kind of bring the first light green, the edge, to make it softer. So when you paint along, if I move too fast, you can always pause the video and take your time to finish each section. Once you finish, you can come back, keep playing the video. Like I mentioned, the bokeh effect is really time consuming, and also about how much water you control. There we go. And here we add a third green right here. So the whole area down here is gonna be darker, so I'm gonna apply the third green all over here. Make the whole area darker. So basically, you kind of just repeat the same step for different sections. And quill 6, you can always go in to see some color they don't blend in well. You can use quill 6 to carry some color and then make them more smooth on the edge. This area I don't think is dark enough, so I'm gonna add a more dark green here. Same as here. Since the whole area is gonna be darker, so I'm gonna apply more dark green in this area. Then we use the previous green. And then some edge, use the coil. So it depends on what's the previous color you have. So it's all good. And then here, maybe I'm gonna add a little bit darker green right in the corner here. And then later I'm gonna be here as well. So I'm gonna just kind of create a leaf shape right over here. So it depends on how you want people to see. You want to see kind of leaf, you can do that. Kind of roughly you can see kind of leaf shape here. Kind of just gently brush the edge. And same here. Then we can continue this area. This area looks kind of too dry. I'm gonna add more color. Add more water. See, that's what happens if I don't wash well. The previous color will be on it. But luckily, since it is painting, the background is all green, so it's not too bad. But if you have a multicolors for your background, that could be the disaster. So we're lucky here. Okay, I'm gonna continue here. We're gonna use the second green. We finish this area. And same as here, gonna use the second green. They just fill in the whole area. Now we have the base right here, and time to use the darker green to define where is the background leaf. So it's kind of create a leaf shape in the back. It might look like a leaf, but not clearly. That's how we create the background, kind of blurry. The thing is here, a leaf is coming from different directions, so it's pretty free. So it can be from here, maybe that different direction. So you can decide where leaf you want them to go. So you kind of roughly can see the leafy shape here, there, so it's kind of from the back. Once we define, now we can add the darker green, kind of bluish green to really emphasize a certain area, like here. The corner here, all the way down here, I want this area to be dark. So really push them back. So you have all the dimension back here. And then just use the previous color to make them blending in better. Same thing here. Here as well. Maybe a little bit here too. So as you can see, like a certain area here is still wet. That is the best time we can add even darker. So much darker. We're gonna use size 86 and I add 96 or 92. Let's do 96. Add some 86. So now it's really dark. I'm gonna really push this area to the back. So add some darker from here. And here I want it to be push them back, and then you can create the depths of your painting. So this area back, here back, here back, maybe corner of here too. So I think that would be good for the background for now. So before we remove masking fluid to paint the main leaf, we really have to wait until the background totally dry. So give yourself some time, look at the background, see which area you want to fix. If you like what you create, let's just wait for the background to be dry. Now it's time to remove the masking fluid. It's all dry. You can just use your finger to tap, tap, tap. Nothing come to your finger. I think it's all dry. So for removing masking fluid, we can use different kind of tool. You can see some people just use their fingers or different kind of rubber objects like the back of scissors. You can choose whatever you feel comfortable. For myself, personally, I prefer use the glue residue eraser. I think it's sturdy, easy to use, and then you can always clean every time you use it. So also for the fingers, I'm sometimes worried about I might leave the oil on the paper, which is not good for watercolor. That's why I still choose this residue eraser. So once we're ready to remove, we can start from the top, and you can just remove the masking fluid like that. Sometimes you can just pulling, it will come out like the glue, the whole piece will come off. Like here you have something stuck on it, you can just remove it. Just keep going. And then make sure you remove all the small corner. Sometimes certain area you might miss, so you can always come back to check before you apply watercolor on this area. As you can see, when you remove, some of the colored pencil sketch is gone. Like I mentioned earlier, the masking fluid might leave some pencil marks. And right here, you don't see any pencil lines here. So if you did your sketch kind of darker earlier, you might still see it. And for mine, I think it's all gone. But we can always go back and add more pencil marks if you need it. So you can see some of them start on here, so you can just remove it, or you can use another corner. So take your time, carefully remove all the glue, all the masking fluid. Okay, almost done. The last leaf. Okay, that's the last part. So before we start painting, I usually like to check each tiny corner to see if I remove everything. And also here some corner I also check. Yeah, there's some small tiny parts still here, so I'm gonna remove it. And just carefully check all the details. All the small corners, some of them still on it, you can just remove it. So if you don't remove it when you paint, you might notice that area, no matter how many layers you apply on it, the paint doesn't stay. Even though it stays, it looks kind of light. You just cannot get to the point that you really want. Okay, I think they are pretty good. I don't see any spot that still have a masking fluid on. So now I think we are all ready to paint the leaf. Now we are ready to paint the main leaf, which is the central one. There are some water droplets on top, so usually what I'm doing is I'm going to use the masking fluid again to cover those water droplets. But if you feel I should be able to avoid those small areas, you can totally just leave it as is. So for me, I will use masking fluid again so I can cover that small area. So same procedure, some liquid soap, a little bit masking fluid. We don't need a lot, since only like a few drops, so we don't need too much. Okay, now the same old brush coming, some water. So now it's kind of like a review from the previous section, how to use masking fluid without ruining your brush. Okay, now we just dip. So it's time to wash your brushes right away again. That's okay. Now let's wait a little bit for the masking fluid to dry, then we can start painting our leaf. Now the masking fluid is dry, so let's paint the leaf. First of all, let's only apply water to the leaf we're going to paint, which is the main leaf right here. When you apply water, try not to apply water to the previous area that we painted already, because you don't want to activate the paint from previous part. So gently apply the water just inside, not the edge. Okay, once we have water inside here, we're ready to apply the lightest green in this area. And lighting is from here, so the lightest part will be right here. So we're gonna apply the light green in the middle. Right over here. Then I'm gonna apply the second green right by here. If you have a chance to take a look the reference, you might see the edge of the leaf is kind of like a highlight. So we're gonna leave that part, not touch, and then I'll show you how we're going to do the refreshing part of the edge. I'm gonna just leave the edge a little bit white, but not too much. just a little bit around the edge. You can see I kind of leave some white outline or edge around there. That's where we're going to leave some highlight of the leaf for later on. So I'm not going to touch the edge. Here too. And then I'm gonna go back to add a more light green right here. So if you want, you can always have a reference right next to your painting, easier for you to see. Okay, that's the base we have for the leaf. And then use second green. You kind of highlight certain part is darker. It's going down. That's why this area is darker. On the edge here too. And also that's the time we can kind of add the detail of the leaf. And here a little bit darker as well. When it's still wet, that's the best time to add more detail, add a darker color. And here, even down here, I still keep the edge kind of white for now. And I'm gonna show you how we're going to do the details later on. So that's the base of the main leaf. I try to make the edge a little bit smaller, not too much. As I add some green down here. Okay, so when it's still wet, let's add a little bit darker color, kind of since it's going down, so here's still the darker part. Right there. Go down here. So since the end of the leaf kind of like a little bit angle here, so I'm gonna make the part here darker. So when the paper is still wet, you can always go back in, add some details. Another thing we can do is still wet. Another thing we can do is do lifting. You want to make a certain areas lighter. For example, here I want to make it lighter. That's the best time you can do it. Every time you lift, remember to wash your brush, get rid of the color. I use a flat brush. And if you have a bigger one at home, you can use that too. Some lighter color right here, a little bit right here. That's the way you can add more like a 3-dimension of your leaf. So the middle part kind of pop out. And after this part, one more thing we can do is use the sideways. Let's lift out the vent. Then you add more details here. So the best time to do lifting is when the paper is still wet. The way you lifting can make it really smooth. As you can see here, naturally just going in here. That's how you add all the details of the leaf. Sometimes you just have to do over and over again until you really get the effect that you want. Some people might like to use gouache, kind of add white on it. I still prefer lifting colors technique since the contrast is not too big, so it's more natural. So that's just another suggestion for you. If you want to try, you can use gouache. So just slowly you get that highlight contrast showing here. And later on we're gonna add some contrast so you can see more. I'll go to another side here. So after a few times you can see some's lighter, some's darker. That's the good thing. You don't want them all over the same light. A certain area you just want them to be lighter. And here, since it's on the dark side, I'm gonna just do a little bit, not too much. Right over here. There we go. I think now we can see the details right over here. Okay, I think that's good enough. Now let's add some details on the darker part, like a floating on the back. And we add a little bit darker green on the back here. A little bit here. So when you add a kind of like contrast for that part, I usually use the smaller brush, like we mentioned, is size 3, very tiny. And we don't need a lot of water for this brush since it just simply highlighted a little bit behind, so not too much water. We do it right over here. So you can see some kind of contrast showing right over here. And here have a the rain droplet, so we will add some shadow on the here later on. Okay, a little bit here too, the darker part right here. Down here too. And then we can always add a little bit darker in certain area. Like right here, make it darker. Since we're gonna add some shadow of the droplet right here, so I can add more here, add more here, add down the corner here too. Of course, down here in the back here. Gonna add a little bit darker down here. Okay, I think that'll be good. I might just do a little bit highlighting here. So you can see. Okay, I think basically that's the first leaf. And around the edge, right now I'm gonna just gradually still use the tiny brush and use some light green. So the reflection is still not the lightest part. That's why I use a little bit light green. Kind of just toned it down. They're still not like lighter than the reflection on the water drop. You can choose to do it towards the end, that's fine too. So right now I'm just doing the demonstration so I let you know that's how I take care of the edge of the leaf. Some of them can be brighter, some of them can be darker. It depends on different kind of leaf. Some of them have this kind of edge, but some of them might not have. Okay, gonna leave some of them brighter, some of them darker. So I think that's our first leaf. It's all done. Now let's continue paint other leaf. Let's do it from this one. So same procedure, apply water inside of the leaf, but not on the edge. Okay, once you finish, and they're gonna apply the light green. This one is more close to the lighting, but the lightest part will be right here. Here is kind of a little bit shadow from there, so I'm gonna start from here. So same thing, avoid the edge for now. So same thing here, we leave the edge. Okay, now we add more light green here. And it's here. Okay, now we add the second green. So in the meantime, you can add the details. So I try to make this one. Here is the main lighting. So here part, this part is lighter. So you can look at your reference, or you want to follow the reference I have, which is totally fine. So once you have a basic foundation in, we can do lifting before this area dry out. Okay. Since it's right here, I'm gonna just add a little bit, not like a big contrast. Since it's kind of in the back, I make it more blurry, not too much detail as the first one. So just a little bit. Okay, now let's lift in color to make more details. Here, the middle part. So since it's in the back, I'm not going to have more details as the first one in the front. So we can make the front one stand out more. And now we can add a little bit darker in certain area. Make the contrast more obvious. Okay. Then I'm gonna lift out a little bit for the center part. Like I say, not too obvious as the front one. Just a little bit. Just certain area, not all the way. Okay. Now since a little bit dry, we can add a little bit darker again. We can use the small brush like we did before Not too much water. Still kind of can see, but still kind of more like a blurry side in the back. There we go. That's a leaf in the back. As we take care of the edge, here I also want to add some light green. Some of them you can just leave it there, but some of them I don't want it to stand out too much. A certain area I'm gonna just leave it white. Always check the brush before you're lifting out colors. Just make sure no color on the brush. I think that's all good. Another thing I would like to do is the water droplets might be on the other leaf too. We don't do realistic style, but I wanna just lifting certain circle. So it looks like a water drop on top. So those details is up to you. If you would like to add some, you can do it. Like some over here. Not very obvious, but just add more here. Maybe a little bit here. So the front water droplet, we're gonna do the realistic style, but other leaf, we're gonna just lifting some colors. Looks like I have some water drop on it. And once I'm lifting some, we can add a little bit darker color to make a kind of shadow. Really subtle, really subtle, since they are in the back. So you kind of can see, but not really. So those small detail, if you want, you can do it right now or you can do it later. It's all up to you. You can kind of see it at a very subtle shadow here, 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 and here. Even though they are subtle, but you still can kind of see it. One here, one here. So make your leaf more interesting. Okay, that's another leaf all done. Let's continue to paint the rest of leaves. So we start from the top one. So same thing, we're gonna wet the paper only inside the leaf. So they are all the same procedure for each leaf. Now is the light green. Since this one receives more light, So I'm gonna make this area lighter. So only a little bit, not too much light green. Then I'm gonna just quill size 6. I squeeze extra water out. Then just bring some light green here. And then there's some refresh on the edge. I'm gonna leave the light like a white. And you can carry the green a little bit down here. Okay, that's the base. And then we still use the light green to make a certain area darker. And now we use the second green. This time we don't want to use the full second green, so I'm gonna bring a little bit first green, lighter one. So a little bit lighter than the second green. Then we just tap at some area. So I'm gonna fix the edge is kind of too wide, so I'm gonna fix it. There we go. That's pretty good. Then gonna use this flat brush. Before that, let's fix a little bit here. So here is just the technique how to paint leaf, but it depends on what kind of leaf you paint each time. It might look different, but I think that's all the same procedure. Okay, now I'm gonna use the flat brush. Same thing will make a certain area lighter, lifting colors. And also the vein in the middle. Since they are all like behind the main leaf, so I will not make a lot much details as the main leaf, but you still can kind of see some details. For me, I like to paint and listen to music, but since I'm recording, I cannot listen to music. So I'm not sure how about your habit when you paint. Do you listen to music, podcast, or you have any kind of audio book playing? Okay, almost done. Kind of just simply Get it? And then now we use the small brush. Not too much water. This time we add the green from the earlier. Gonna move this one. And emphasize a certain area to be darker. Okay, I think that's pretty good. And maybe just a little bit smidge darker. Okay, there we go. I think that would be the third leaf. And the last one, as we did earlier about the edge, I'm gonna make a certain area kind of lighter, not so bright. So the contrast is not that obvious here. Make it here too. Maybe a little bit certain area. Okay, now it's still kind of wet, so I'm gonna wait a little bit, and then come back. I will emphasize a certain area. So for you, you can always paint and take a look, and sometimes I will put the painting vertical way, like from the distance you will see if you can see the front ground, middle ground, and background, and help you to make the color darker, or you feel like the front ground doesn't pop out too much, then you can add more details. So I think that's the right way you can check if you have the good depth of your painting. So I'm gonna add a little bit darker in certain area. Okay, I'm going to stop here just for this leaf. Let's continue for the last leaf right here. So the same procedure. You can wet the paper inside, avoid the edge. Okay, I think that's all good. Since this leaf is down the bottom, but we still receive some light, so I'm going to make this part like the leaf is this shape and going into kind of like a valley. So that's why this part gonna be lighter, receiving the light, and around the edge except the reflection, but I will make it darker. So you will see I add a light green in this area, and on the side here gonna be darker. Okay, now we use the second green. The edge, the tip kind of going down, so it's darker. But I still keep the edge for now. So if accidentally you cover the edge, don't worry, you can always use the flat brush to lift out color when it's still wet. That'd be good time to get rid of the color. And same as here. There we go. So that's the base of this leaf. Okay. So I'm gonna make this leaf a little bit darker since it's down the bottom. So I'm gonna add a more darker green down here. Usually when you use more color in one area, can make it really colorful, but also have a lot of interesting color showing. And also when the colors dry out, it usually look lighter than when you paint. So just keep it in mind. Okay. Okay, that's good. Maybe a little bit in the middle. Like a certain area, I really want them to be darker. So I'm gonna keep adding the dark green. And then also even a little bit darker in a certain point, like down here. And then here too. Okay. So for me, when I paint, I sometimes like to rotate the paper. Not sure if you notice my hand keep turning, but if I'm not doing the teaching demonstration, I actually rotate paper instead of my hand. So if my hand is on the camera way, sorry about it. Okay, so I think that's good. And before it's fully dry, let's lift in some colors. This area will need to be lighter. Okay, I think that's pretty good. And then I'm gonna leave the line right here. So every time you lift, I know it's a lot of work. You have to lift once, wash, dry, and then come back again. But those details really help make your painting in a realistic style. So slowly all the details coming out. Okay, I think that's pretty good. Maybe emphasize here since here it's lighter. Okay, I think that's pretty good. And then let's add a little bit detail like here. We did some kind of water droplet, but not so obvious. So we're gonna use the small brush, just lifting certain area. Not too much. Kind of like a little tiny circle. You're kind of lifting a certain area. And then when it's still wet, add some darker green. Just make a simple shadow down there. And then go back, lifting certain area, make it brighter. Okay, maybe you try one more here. You can just see here is lighter. Okay, so it's up to you. If you wanna lifting more, it's good. So it all depends on how you feel. You want to make it more or less. It's all your call. So you can decide how many water droplets you want to show on different leaf. So I'm just showing that's the technique. You can use lifting technique to get more interesting effect on your painting. So I'm gonna just leave it here 1, 2, 3. I think that's good. And then I'm going to fill in the edge like before. This time is since it's darker, so I'm gonna use the color we missed first, second one. And here is very dark, so I'm gonna start from here. So sometimes you look at the picture or the real leaf closely, you will see the tiny reflection here. So now it's toned it down, so that one's going down. But certain area, I think I still can make them a little bit darker. So I'm gonna add some off here, here, here. Okay, now let's take care of the top part. So top part, I'm gonna start from the light green, since they receive more light. So certain area can be just leave it white, which is fine. And go all the way down here. And here, since it's darker, I'm going to add a second green. So leaf was going down, so down there is darker, so add a little bit darker here. And here too. Okay, I think that's for the last leaf. Now let's wait dry, then we can paint the stem, the branch, and the water droplets. Now let's paint the stem. For stem, I'm going to use number 88, 91, plus a little bit 86 to add the darkest part. The stem area is not too big. You can either wet the area or you just directly use the paint, but have some brush on side with water only. So it's up to you, see which way you want your stain look like. So for me, I usually like to add some water right here, like a canela leaf, and the stain, so the color can gradually blend in together. See that? So that will make it kind of natural, not too sudden, just jump into different colors. There you go. If you have a smaller coil brush at home, you can use that too. I just use this coil size 6 so much, so I'm kind of get used to it. So I added some water right on the top, since that's the lighter part. Now I can go back. You can see the naturally blending. I really like that effect. Since it's still wet, that's the best time you add all the colors in. That's really the amazing part of watercolor. I like to see how paint breathing in when the paper is still wet. Now I'm just filling in. So the lighter part receiving light, I still leave a little bit white to make the contrast. So since it's pretty wet, so I'm gonna move in down here, because the reason I don't add another color is because when the paper is still kind of wet, they will breathing in a lot. That means you will cover your previous color, which is not what I want. So I'm gonna move in down here and then go back to that area later. See, I have some color from previous part, so I can just use it. So just add in more number 88 to complete this part. There we go. Since here is not direct light, so I'm gonna make the white area not so bright. I'm just brushing the color in right here too, so you can see some area is lighter. I think now is a good time we can go in, add a darker color. You can see it's still wet, so it's perfect. Make a small area behind the leaf. I'm gonna just cover it. You can see I'm still kind of miss 80 and 91. I don't want like a big jump, a big contrast. Okay. Okay, moving along here. And I can feel here it's not dark enough, so I'm gonna add more red, which is a foxberry down here. And then now I add the darker. And then now it's pretty good. Let's add 86. I can make it really dark. Right by here. And sometimes you can even add some green, like a previous dark bluish green into it. And then we emphasize certain areas really dark. Like here, here, right behind here too. And then here for sure. Just a little bit right on the edge. Because this area is darker. All the way up here too. Some kind of shadow on the stem. So I think that looks pretty good. That's how to paint the stem. Before we move to the last part of painting water droplets, I would like to show you one trick I usually do. Now I look at a painting, I just feel like the front leaf not pop out enough. At this moment, I usually go back to the background here, add some darker layer to push it back more, so the layers like a front ground, middle ground, the background might be more obvious. So now I'm going to show you how I do it. But for your painting, if you like the way it is, you don't have to do it. This one kind of like an extra bonus. I want to show you if I don't like this area, I want to make the background push more back. That's how I do it. So I use a coil 6, and you can see all the colors from previous painting. I choose number 96, add a little bit 123 to mix it, and then make sure to have just right amount water. If you have too much water, you might kind of lifting colors, which is not what you want. But if you don't have enough water, you might kind of cause the water mark. So this part is really tricky, so you just have to practice a few more times, and then you will know how much water you can control to do this kind of trick. So I'm mainly just make this area darker. So what I'm going to do, I have one color, which is adding 96 plus 123 in this area. And then I have another brush with 92 plus 86, kind of really dark right here. And then I'm going to just gently brush on the surface of a certain area. For example, right here. Really careful, try not to touch the leaf. When you brush it, not too hard. You don't want to leave colors. So you gently add another layer on it. And the same here, I want this whole area darker. So just push the whole area here. So now this whole area is wet. So you have another layer of darker green on it. And the paper still wet. Now is the right timing to add another darker greenish. You can really push the background back and make your front leaf stand out more. And you can go back to the first color, kind of just bring the darker color more naturally. And then just breathing in naturally. So for this part, water control is very important. If you give it the right amount of water, then the effect will be really natural. And then like this corner, I want to make it darker, so make a leaf stand out more. So now from here, you can see this area. I push it back more, so now you can see the space. So that's how I look at my painting towards the end. In certain area, I want it to be darker. That's how I do it. So now you know my trick, and you can practice at home. But just remember, not too much water, but you should have enough water. And then like this one, I'm gonna just wash my brush a little bit. Kind of gently use a little bit second or first green. Make the edge more natural. Gently brush on the surface, but not lifting colors. Okay, so I think now looks really good. So let's lay it dry, and then we will go back to remove the masking fluid of the water droplets. Now the background is totally dry. Let's remove the masking fluid. Again, I'm going to use the residue eraser. So we have to make sure all the corners, all the tiny area, we get rid of the masking fluid, so the color will stay on the paper. And turn around. Now we remove the big one. Tiny one. And the final, the dripping one. So once you remove it, just take a look. Kind of check closely to see if any masking fluid still right here. I do see a little bit right here, so I might check this area, see they are all clean. Okay, I think they are pretty good. Now we have colors. So if your palette has some kind of leftover colors from previous paint, that's perfect. So we only need a little bit really light green for the first layer. If you go back to our practice about the water droplets, we apply water first in certain area, then we apply the light green. And when the paper is still wet, let's add the darker green. Okay, if that's the case, I'm going to use my quill brush add some colors in certain area. If you have a smaller brush, smaller quill, that would be perfect. But I just like to use this one. Okay, you don't need a lot of water. Since the water drop this is a small area, you can just have a little bit water. And for the water drop this is kind of opposite. If lighting from the top, usually the light is refreshing is down the bottom. So we are going to add the water only the top part, like where we want to add some green. You can also have your reference on side. So let me move here. So you will see the reference on the left screen. You will see the top part actually is darker and the bottom part is the lightest refreshing. Okay, so let's continue. You add some water in certain area. Now we use kind of leftover light green. Then you just add some of them. You don't have to cover the whole area, because the refreshing area is gonna be the lightest one. So I'm gonna limit the white. Okay, that's first layer. It's very subtle, very light green. So when the paper is still wet, that's the best time to add a second green. So the certain green I use 123 at some 96 right here. Gonna just add on the top. Now you can see they are darker. And since the paper is still wet, so the two colors just breathing in together very naturally. That's a really good effect. Okay, then I go back to a little bit lighter green. Kind of carry some darker green to certain area you want. So now basically you can see the refreshing. Lightest one down the bottom and top part is darker. But since the paper is still pretty wet, I'm gonna let it dry a little bit, because you can see the color kind of breathing outside the circle. So I'm gonna take a break from this one. Let's move to the next water droplets. So same thing, add some water. Since the lighting all from the same direction, so I'm going to do the same thing as the first one. Leave the bottom part as the lightest one. Add the first layer on the top. Leave the bottom part natural paper white. There we go. Then add the second darkest green. Okay. Now we're gonna leave it here for now. Maybe a little bit darker green down here. So when you see the water breathing out too much, you can use the flat brush, not too much water, kind of leave some extra color out of the circle. There we go. So you will see the edge. I can just take some color out, and you can avoid the fuzziness of the circle. That's one way you can save the fuzziness outside the circle. So if like really too much, that means it's still very wet. So you prefer just take a break, let it dry a little bit, then you can continue add another darker green. Okay, so while waiting, let's move to the third water droplet, like here. Very light green for the first layer. And gently bring out the darker green up to the top. And now I think the first one's kind of dry. It's good for us to go in to add the final layer, the darkest part. Look at this corner. I'm not sure if you can see it. Once I paint, I notice the masking fluid still have a little bit here. That's why no matter how many times I put a green here, this area is still white. So that's the example. I did not clean the masking fluid well enough. But since it's a small tiny area, you can just keep adding the paint until the color kind of on it. Okay, let's continue. So you can add in more color, make it more obvious. And now we can even go back to the second one. It's gonna dry out more. Then we can add a darker green to make the contrast more obvious. Like that. And the tiny one, I think we can do it right now. We start with the light green. Since this one is down the bottom, so the reflection, I'm gonna just give it a little bit, but not too much. There we go. Add a darker green. Okay. And then when it's still wet, let's carry out some light green by using the flat brush. You can carry some light green to the bottom as reflection, and a little bit maybe here for the second big one. Same thing. Just gently carry out some light green down the bottom. It's getting too small, you don't have to do it, but if they are still big enough, I think those effects can really make your water droplets stand out. There we go. Okay. Now since they are pretty good, let's move to the darkest color, which I use the 92 plus some 86 to make the biggest contrast on the top. So we can start from here. Once you add the darkest part, the water droplet really stand out. And then you can always have a second green on hand. If the contrast too big, you don't like it, just soften the edge. You can carry all the way down here since we're gonna add the shadow down there. And then I'm gonna just use some water to carry the light green to a certain area. And then now we go back to the second one. Use the darkest color to add the biggest contrast. Okay, then the second green one, make them softer. Each water droplets pattern can be different. Depends on the surroundings that we talked about earlier. And now we add the tiny one. Maybe just a little bit on this side. I think that will be enough for a small one. And same with this one, the tiny one. Tiny one, you don't have to add too much. Just a little bit certain area. And the contrast will be out. And I always have like I have three brushes in hand. Anytime you feel like they are not smooth enough, use the previous color to smooth them out, or you can use coil 6. See which one you feel comfortable. You can make them all blending in more natural, right? Like that. Okay, I think all the water droplets on the top is all done. Now, let's add a shadow first to make them more like a come together, not like a floating on top of the leaf. So let's also use the lightest green. This time I'm gonna add the number 123, and then we just gently add down the bottom here. Make a whole area darker. And you can decide how much shadow you want to add in. For example, I want this big. And you can use a coil to make the edge softer. But remember, not too much water. You don't want to leave out the colors from the previous layer. So now you can see the basic shadow is going to be right there. And then now let's go to the second one, the same thing. We kind of let you know where the shadow gonna be. It'll be this area. There we go. Same thing, even the tiny one, they also have a shadow on the leaf. So you can also add on it here. So now you can really see they're on top of the water, on top of the leaf, not like a floating on the top. Even the tiny one, same thing. We added a shadow. But since the little one's on darker part, you can use a darker color, which we can use the second one, second green. We can basically let you know where the shadow is going to be. There we go. Now, since we still have some water there, that's the best time. You add the second darkest green to the shadow area. Now from this screen, you can really see the water drops on the leaf. Okay, since it's pretty wet, let's let it dry a little bit. In the meantime, I'm gonna make sure the edge is smooth. So I'm gonna coil 6, go back to smooth out the edge. And for this one, the tiny one, I think I'm all ready to add the darkest bluish green to the shadow area, like right over here. I think the little one is all done. Now the top part is still kind of wet, so I'll let it dry a little bit. In the meantime, let's move to the very last one, the dripping one. So same thing, I'm gonna add some colors on it, but not all the way, only certain area, the top area, and then lightest green. You can make sure when the water touches the leaf, leave it some white area. That's also part of the reflection. And go all the way down here. That will be our first layer. There we go. And when it's still wet, let's use the second green. Some areas darker, some areas light. Okay, I think that's pretty good. So same thing, I'm gonna let it dry so we can add the darkest bluish green. I think now the top part is pretty good, so I'm gonna add the darkest one right over here. Kind of got the ring around it, and use the middle green to soften the edge. Use a quill. That'd be good. So same thing for the top one. Add a little dip down the bottom. Second darkest green to soften the edge, blending in. And last, for this one, we also add some darkest area over here. Okay. So far, I think that's pretty good. But in the meantime, I would like to add some details on the leaf to make it kind of more stand out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the second green. Just gently add a certain area. For example, I want the vein to be more obvious. Like right here. Right here. Or right here. So certain area I would like to make them darker. So while you're waiting for them to dry, that's a good time to take a look at your painting to see which area you feel like, I can add more details. That's the perfect timing. You can do that. Okay. Okay, so far I think that's pretty good. Now the final check, you will see this area, the refreshing part, the water actually bringing in the white part. No worries, same thing. Use the flat one, not too much water, and you can just lifting, get rid of the dark green out of the edge. Then you will be all good. So now is the final time. Take a look at all the details and see which area you would like to fix. Or maybe some inside the water droplet, I want certain area to be lighter. Then use the flat brush to take some part is lighter. Maybe here I want a little bit part to be lighter. You do the lifting or sun. So it's all up to you. And now I think this area is all ready to add the darker green. Final one here. Just part of it. And the some of that. Light green going in. I think it looks pretty good for now. So that's all for today's class. So now let's move the camera out. Then you can see the whole painting. So what I usually do is just take a look, go through each corner, see which area you would like to emphasize, you want to fix. If you are all happy with the result, don't forget to sign your name. Congratulations everyone, you have completed this class. I hope all my tips and technique can help you in your art journey. Please feel free to contact me for any questions or comment. I can be reached at In Creative Studio on Instagram, or you can go back to my website and send me the direct email. I will get back to you as soon as possible. Also, all the art supplies that I use in this class, you can find the links either in Instagram under my bio, or you can go to my website. I have the whole list. You can find either the direct link or the discount code for you. Again, thank you so much for joining my class. Happy painting, everyone. Bye.